Also, I can
This is the Constructionist Podcast, where we take ancient stories, the person of Jesus, current events and topics, and help you construct a new Christian worldview that's relevant and loving to those around you. I'm your host, Kevin Bates. I'm a semiotician and community builder, looking at the signs of the times to build a better future together. Good evening, everyone. You're tuned into the Constructionist Podcast, and tonight we are continuing our 9-part series on the body, constructing a new you. And so tonight's topic is nutrition and fitness, part 2. We covered part 1, of course, last week. And so if you need to get caught up on this podcast series, especially this mini series, go back to last week's podcast on our social media channels, and you can pick up that podcast and listen, get caught up. We're discussing how nutrition and fitness affect and build the body, mind, and spirit. So last week we talked about the theology of nutrition and fitness. We talked about the science of fitness and nutrition. And this week is our application week. And we have a special guest. Her name is Stacy Cannon. She's a nutrition coach, a fitness coach, an endurance plant-based triathlete herself, and a coach for other endurance racers. She's our newest Hag Lake, which I'm not sure the name of the race yet, but we'll get that here in a minute. An endurance race director here locally in our Portland metro area, a yoga instructor, a sound healer, and a meditation guide. She does a lot and has profound knowledge, and we're excited to have her. She's a proud member of the American Association for Drugless Practitioners. She's certified in the Institute for Integrated Nutrition. She also went to Grand Canyon University. She has tons of hours, but she listed 200 hours of yoga training, teacher training. She is also a certified triathlon, ultra running, and endurance sports nutrition coach through the UESCA. She can actually be found on some pretty amazing websites and apps that you can find on your phone and download. She can be found on Insight Timer for healing meditations. That's a free app that you can download. Just go to your app store on your smartphone and download Insight Timer. And also the Motive app that is coming soon. Her meditations are coming soon on the Motive app. That is a specific endurance training app where she is doing meditation guide on that as well. She also can be found locally here in our Portland metro area through Cypher Life. And if you're interested in that, you can go to cypher.life and you can find out about her local classes, yoga, and also sound healing. She's very knowledgeable in a lot of things, and we are excited to have her this week. As the Constructionists, we desire for you to be able to navigate your life through the framework of a worldview that is relevant and loving to people. That is our goal, to help build a new worldview that is relevant and loving. Part of this is getting our own house in order, learning to love ourselves so that we can love others better. I want to encourage you to listen to a video that we've promoted all through this mini podcast series. It's TED.com. And it's the benefits of not being a jerk to yourself. The benefits of not being a jerk to yourself by Dan Harris on TED.com. So in previous podcasts, we made mention that as we deconstruct old ways and toxic ways and unhealthy ways of thinking, we need to construct new ways and new pathways forward and learn a new thinking and understanding. So it's very easy to become exactly what we reject if we have no goal or no vision in front of us. So as we break down old habits, we break down toxic behaviors, we need something new to construct and grab onto forward. So this is our thinking space. We're not judgmental here. This is an open thinking space. We're not claiming to be scientists. We're not claiming to be any profession. Really, Stacy is our professional today, but we're not claiming to be anything really professional in some of these areas that we're talking about. These are just practical thoughts, practical theology, practical application for our life in order to live by. This is a 9-part series. And so, number 1, our series started with goal setting, then habits and toxic behaviors. We talked about self-concept and beauty. And then 2-part series on fitness and nutrition. And then we're headed right into, which will spin off of this week's spiritual practice and meditation series. And then healthy relationships. We're going to talk about mental health and, of course, the often neglected rest. We're going to end this with rest. So note to our supporters, there's 2 ways that you can support us. Number 1, we want you to listen to us and make notes and engage with us and ask questions. That's most important to us, that we're engaging with our audience, answering your questions, and as we're live or throughout the week as you listen, we want to engage and answer anything that we can or find resources for you. If you want to give to us, you can on resonatelife.org and go to the Give tab, and you can financially support what we do here. And then there's another way that you can support tonight is you can go to cipher.life and you can sign up for a class. If this interests you, or if you want some special coaching or to attend a yoga or sound healing time, sign up at cipher.life if you live in the local Portland metro area, and you can be involved with direct coaching and teaching from Stacy Cannon. So why are we talking about this? Just a couple of minutes just to recap a little bit of last week. We talked about the theology of fitness and nutrition. How does this relate to our faith and God and just our praxis in life? We talked about a lot of theology last week and science. I believe that theology and science actually go together. I don't divorce the two. And so theology and science definitely marry one another. So we talked about the science of fitness and nutrition, mostly nutrition, where we talked about diabetes and unhealthy eating habits and the toxins that we put in our body and what they can do to us. And so we talked about the science of that. And then tonight we're talking about application. Why? Because we need to care about our bodies. What we put in this body matters. What we take from this earth matters. And so as we take from the earth and we put in our body, that is a symbiotic relationship that we need to cultivate health and care of the world around us and also our little worlds in this temple of our body. So what we do with it matters, and we only have, I plan on living, let's say 80 years. I only have 80 years in this body, and I can treat it however I want, or I can repair it however I want. I didn't live very well in my 20s. I didn't live very well in my early 20s. And I can say that I needed to make some significant changes in order to live a life of longevity. We want you to, it's never too late. And we want you to practice and do and make the changes you need to live a healthy life, holistic life, a spiritually filled life so that you can be a whole person. It's all about being a whole human. All right. So let's start, because I don't want to waste too much time. I want to start with.
Can I interject one thing though, Kevin?
Please.
I'll have you check your sound while I do that.
Okay.
Something that Stacy did start 2 days ago, right? Is your cohort?
Yes.
So explain that to us a little bit.
Right. So one of the things that I had been working on was, well, of course, trying to spread the message of plant-based eating and living and what that looks like. And most of the time, what I hear from people is, well, what do you eat? Right? That can't be very exciting, and that's not a lot of variety. But it's a wide world of food out there. And so recipes are important, and sort of learning how to think outside of the box in ways you prepare your food or food you normally eat, but how to sort of insert more vegetables into your regular rotation of meals. So it's education around that, and yeah, bringing people together that want to learn how to cook plant-based, live plant-based, because it's the food, but it's more than the food, right?
Very good. Okay. Well, I think I just lost Kevin there too.
Uh-oh.
He should be back here shortly. Where's the outline here? That's funny. He's totally gone. I've lost track of where I'm at. This is professional.
Well,
Sorry,
I
everybody.
can ask a question to get us going.
Go for it. Yeah.
Sure.
It's something I was thinking about. So I think a lot of fitness tends to focus on the body. And what I'm seeing from you is more of a holistic approach where spirituality is involved. And so I'd just love to hear you talk about that. How is spirituality connected to what you do? How do you bring that to the folks that you teach and coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Well, like I said, it's about the food, but it's about more than the food, right? So I like to think of it sort of like a wheel. And if one of the spokes of the wheel is shorter than the other, it's not rolling very well, right? So if our connection to spirit, whatever that is, if we're not tuned into that, it's challenging. If our workplace is a depressing scene, if our home life is a depressing scene, right, then you're probably not thinking, man, I just really want to create these gorgeous, amazing, nutritious meals, right? So we have to look at the whole picture, taking care of our mind, our bodies, and our spirits. So
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Take it from here, Kevin. So I think we kind of just talked a little bit while you were bouncing back and forth. So go for it.
Well, I had to
Yes.
disconnect and reconnect. Does that sound better to you, Jake?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't know what's happening on the technical difficulty side of things, but hopefully we can make it through without another faux pas here. All right. So, nutrition. Let's just dive deep into nutrition. I've only been plant-based eating. Some people call that vegan. I know that vegan is a lifestyle and also philosophy. We use that sometimes interchangeably with vegan and plant-based eating. So let's try to change our language to plant-based nutrition because we know that that's different than veganism, just to be technical. Everybody is in a different season of their life. Everybody has a different position in life. Some people are wealthy, some people are middle class, some people are poor. We identify and we honor that and we respect that in this conversation. Some people have chronic illnesses and challenges that they're fighting through on a daily basis. We honor and we want to address some of those things. And before we do that, let's talk about just generally, Stacy, what do you, because I've only been plant-based eating for about 8 months, maybe 7 months, 7 or 8. And I love it. But you've been a plant-based eater strictly for how many years?
20 years, half my life.
Half
Wow.
your life. So
Before it
why
was cool.
before it was cool. So number one, why did you make the change? What were your struggles in making the change or entering into this lifestyle fully? What are the benefits you see? Just talk openly about plant-based nutrition. What kind of benefits do you see for your life personally, but also professionally? What are you seeing in some of your clients?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, I was raised on property actually in Sherwood, and we had chickens, and I loved the chickens. I named the chickens. I painted their nails so I could tell them apart. And then one day they were gone and our freezer was full. And bless my parents, but that was a lot, right? And I also, even as a child, the texture of meat, it just was not something I was interested in. And I have always been extremely allergic to dairy. So it was sort of a natural progression from me. When I went to college, I was, I'll say, a junk food vegetarian because, cafeteria life. And
Right.
and then in college, I found the practice of yoga. And one of the limbs of yoga we talk about is ahimsa, which means non-harmfulness. And to me, that made sense, right? If we're all sentient beings, then why would we eat each other? So that was really hit home for me. And I had sort of always felt that anyways. Like I didn't want to do that. I certainly didn't participate in that preparation of food that way. So I thought, well, I probably shouldn't eat it then. And then in college, I majored in kinesiology. And so I was very interested in the inner workings of the human body and the way we digest our food. And so just sort of through experiment on how I felt, changing up the food that I put it, cut back on the white bread PB&Js in the cafeteria and like mix in a salad. How did that feel in my body? Right. So I was sort of my own experiment. And then the more I got into sport and became an athlete, learning how to fuel my body, it wasn't, I guess back then there wasn't a lot of information on that, doing that properly through a plant-based diet. There was a lot of misnomers. And the food industry back then, as far as what was available for vegans, man, just like sawdust patties of burgers and things, like it wasn't good.
Yeah, the 80s and 90s were just garbage for food.
So not good. Everybody has it really, really good now with all the products. But yeah, so just kind of discovering food. I love to cook. And so it wasn't hard for me to sort of play with different foods, but really noticing my body feeling different, especially around being an athlete. Recovery, things like recovery was better. When I was vegetarian and I did dairy, I suffered greatly from migraines. And as soon as I knew I was allergic, but darn, like cheese was really good. And so
cheese is really good.
It's really good.
Yeah, cheese is really good.
Unfortunately,
and so I would eat it, but I would suffer greatly. And finally, when I gave it up and became fully plant-based or vegan, I never had another migraine. And that's just
so.
me.
Just to interrupt a little bit to expand on what you're experiencing. This is your early 20s that you're experiencing this. So you go through this college life, and you're trying your best to eat plant-based, but then you start to discover a more healthy approach to plant-based. And okay, so now I'm living your early 20s. Right now. So I'm in my first 7 months, although I'm 50. So I'm living my best life right now. Totally. And so for the last 7 months, the number one question I get from people is, "Oh, you're vegan? You're vegan?" And then they have that scowl on their face. And so that means you don't eat meat? That's the next question. Yeah. And then where do you get your protein?
Oh my.
So let's just knock that one out of the park and let's just address that, because that's the first real question somebody always asks me is, what do you eat? Sawdust for, quinoa and sawdust and lettuce. Where do you get your protein?
No.
Yes. Delicious. That's a great question. I hear it all the time. In the United States, we are not seeing people dying of protein deficiency. We're just not. And the truth about food, just not. And the truth about food is there's protein in everything, right? Mushrooms have protein, literally everything. So I believe that the volume of protein that we think we need to survive is probably much higher than what we actually need. I know that's controversial. I know people think, and that with the rise of things like the ketogenic diet, paleo, there's a heavy, heavy emphasis on protein. But that comes with trouble too. That's hard on the kidneys. Overdoing the protein is really hard on the kidneys, and there's other things that can happen. So, where do you get your protein? Everywhere. Right? It's in everything you eat. So eating enough.
With these other diets, as you know, being a kinesiologist yourself, that or kinesiology practitioner, you know that the equation to the ketogenic diet actually pans out when it comes to just the mechanics of the science of the body and how it works. So you take in more protein, that means you're going to, and you take in less carbohydrates, that means you're going to burn more fat and you're going to lose more fat, and you're going to dial in those macros and you're going to look like a rock star. So, so the problem with that though, is that is a horrible, immense amount of stress on the body.
Yeah.
And people don't understand how much stress on the body that actually is, because they see great results, they feel better, but yeah.
Right. So if we're talking about longevity, right, that doesn't add up, right? The quick fix of yes, you're going to lose weight, right? That's for sure going to happen. And you might look great for a little bit, but what you're doing to the insides of your body, right? That's not sustainable. Being on keto forever. I always hear from people, I'm on keto again because it worked really well the first time. And I usually just encourage people to slow that sentence down and say that again, right?
Right.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I'm on keto again.
Again,
so we talked a little bit about macros last week, and macros are the nutrients of lipids or fats, carbohydrates, and protein. And those are ratioed. And so traditionally it's what, 20,
60,
30,
20, 20.
60,
60,
20,
20, 20.
And 60
50, 30,
being
20,
carbohydrates.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
What would you say, Stacy, based on pound of body weight, is the amount of grams of protein that a person needs?
This is a trick question. I think it depends. It depends on activity level. I think it depends on age. I don't think somebody who's 18 years old playing 3 sports needs the same amount of protein as someone who's 75 and sedentary. I really believe in a more holistic approach, right? And it's every person, look, what's right for you isn't going to necessarily be right for someone your same age and same activity level even, right? We all have different stuff happening in our body. And so I'm not going to throw out like an exact number, I guess is my point, because I think it's really case by case.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and dialing in your macros, Jake, a lot of times for a bodybuilder or an endurance racer or somebody that's trying to aesthetically look a certain way, that's actually
my
an
whole
addiction.
goal in life.
That's actually can be addictive, where you're just addicted to dialing in your macros. Stacey, you have a little story about that. You don't have to go into it, but dialing in your macros to the point that you were just completely like unhappy with life.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I went through a phase of really wanting to lean out my body and for my physique to be, I'll just say the ideal athletic body, right? And so I went deep into the life of tracking macros to the point where I was weighing and measuring anything that I would eat, to the point where I cut out any type of social activity that involved food, or I'd keep my food in my purse perfectly weighed and measured, right? There was no deviating ever. And I was miserable. I looked fantastic, right? But
you were stuck in your house forever.
But I was not fun to be around, right? And I wasn't really living because I was so hyper focused. So yes, I think as with all things, you can get into deep. And with macro tracking, if you have a really specific goal in mind, that might be the sort of rigidity that you need. Now, fast forward these years later, I really believe in food freedom and learning how to have a healthy relationship with food that is not restrictive and punishing, which it can be.
Let's spin off on that. Tell me about it, because that really is interesting what you just said.
Yeah.
So most people can I make this generalization? I'm sure that there's demographics. There's
how about you say many people, and then that
many people.
There you go.
There we go. Many people have a very poor relationship with food.
Yes.
Either they're just looking for a quick sandwich, and that's why we have drive-ups. they don't have the time to make it. They don't see the value in it, or they don't see the value in making it themselves, rather. And so we really, because we're not necessarily making our food on it, many people are not making their food on a regular basis. They're not appreciating how it comes together and what it actually is. So you might look at a meal and you don't even know what it is that you're eating when you go out to eat, because I have a culture that is very, indulgent, decadent when it comes to food. So what is your relationship with food? Help somebody like Shreya, Jake, and I have a good relationship with food. What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? Well, I think part of it is knowing where your food comes from. We don't, let's see. Well, I mean, ideally I would say like grow as much of your own food as you can, because that's the best way to learn about food and how it all really comes together. But I think this is further down in the notes here, but
It's okay.
I believe that everything has energy, right? Everything is energy. And so if that's true, then what I eat is energy. So if I put into my body vibrant, live foods with the energy of the earth and prepared in a peaceful, loving manner. Like, have you ever cooked dinner but been really irritated that you're cooking dinner? And you're chopping and you're angry and you're trying to do 10 things at once. And like that translates, right? But when you are relaxed and you're cooking and you're enjoying yourself and you're sort of taking your time, that translates in the meal too, right?
Right.
Yeah. So having food is energy. And so as you take that energy in, thinking about how that's coming into your body, the process of it, where it came from, I love prayer or blessings right before a meal to be in gratitude for the whole process of how that made its way to your plate, right?
Yeah.
And also understanding satiation. This is a bit of an issue in our culture.
Yeah.
So
expand on that just a little bit. What do you mean?
So our body, our brain, and our stomach, they can talk to each other. But often we get ahead of ourselves when we eat, and we eat and we eat and we eat, and we're not eating at a pace where the stomach has time to tell the brain, like, I'm good. I'm totally good. Because it's fast. We're driving through. We're putting it, as fast as we can, food in our mouth so we can get to our meeting or get to basketball or whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
And so then we've eaten an entire supersized value meal, but we're still hungry because we didn't even realize the meal we just took in because it happened so fast. And the brain goes, I'm going to need more,
Yeah.
So taking time when you eat to notice satiation in your body, to notice feelings of being full or satisfied or enjoying the food. So chewing slowly, taking time if you can for meals. I know that's not possible for everyone.
Yeah.
But being a little more deliberate with our intake, and then we might start to notice things like, I actually don't need a third helping of that. Like I would have been good at one or even two, right? If it's, that's good. But knowing what's good for your body means being in tune with your body, right?
Right.
Do you, when you work with clients, do you recommend a minimum number of chews?
Ooh, no, I don't.
Okay.
But I've heard a lot of things about that. Like you have to chew certain things X amount of times. I've had teachers in my past that were very adamant about how many times you had to chew certain grains, especially. But also I love the saying, your stomach doesn't have teeth, right? So
that is so true.
You gotta chew it up before it gets there. So taking your time and saliva mixing with food, it's all part of the process of satiation and really allowing, some food needs to break down a little bit before it gets to the stomach. So chewing it up is important.
Yeah. Very good. And to spin off as well, Shreya, I know that you kind of a project of yours is to grow most of your own food, right?
I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like what percentage do you think of your diet have you personally grown?
Right now, very little. I'm still learning how to get plants to grow, and
Yeah.
last season was a hard growing season.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
What was the biggest thing you feel like you learned?
uh, I learned how to read the plants a little better to tell when they needed water.
Okay.
I have a tendency to overwater my house plants, and it turns out I have a tendency to underwater my outdoor plants. And now I'm able to see the signs of that better.
Nice. And what do you feel like was your favorite thing to grow?
I love brassicas, broccolis, Brussels sprouts. I don't know. I just think they're the coolest thing to grow. And you
Because
can
they're
eat the
Jurassic
leaves.
era looking or what?
That could be.
Yeah.
Well, and they produce a lot of food. Like Brussels sprout stalks have just all of them up and down, and like broccoli is a big item on the ground, and it's just it's a lot.
Lovely.
Yeah,
And the
you
leaves
can
are
do a
like
lot with them.
half the size of me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, when you grow your own food, that definitely puts you in tune with the energy of the earth as well. And then when you cook that food, Sheree, you actually did a lot with food over the Christmas season. I was watching you do different gifts with food. I actually practiced the same thing. I took peppers and I did some fermentation of some peppers and stuff, and I gave those as gifts of just food, just giving gifts as food. And I think that when we're generous with food, and we're growing our food, we have these little planter boxes out in front of our yard that my wife, Amanda, she grows, and Natalia, they're all into it. It teaches our children certain values of the earth. So I think at least growing a pot of food, something that you can even have in your house or outside on the porch or your apartment veranda or wherever, just to grow something that you eat, something from somewhere you grew from the earth, I think it's just an important, almost spiritual exercise.
The best cherry
actually
tomatoes
good.
you will ever eat.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Really
Well,
good.
yes, I have a very, I eat tomatoes because I know they're on the food rainbow and they're red and I'm supposed to eat them. And that's
And
why I
ketchup
eat them.
doesn't count.
Ketchup doesn't count. I eat those tomatoes because they're on the food rainbow and they're red. That's the reason I'll give of why I eat tomatoes, and I'm just forced to sometimes. Stacy,
Another really fun one is if you plant, and this can be, on your porch or anywhere, but if you do in a planter several different kinds of lettuce, right? You call it your little salad bowl, and you can keep trimming off of it, and it just keeps going. It's great.
Oh,
That's awesome.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can grow herbs too, fresh herbs in a small pot. And this is just making space for people who either don't have the room, because we do live in a metropolitan type city area. So we have more room here in Sherwood with our yards and such, but not everybody does. And so growing smaller pots is possible, even on the windowsill in the sunlight that comes through your window. It's possible to grow food even that way. Let's talk a little bit about something that's really important that you mentioned in our pre-work, diabetes, and you wanted to touch on type 2 diabetes. Now, what I know from turning to plant-based, it's very easy when you turn to plant-based to then just start eating more sugar and salt, because you're putting salt on everything. You are decreasing your salt intake from not eating meat anymore. You're not grilling steak with a bunch of salt on it, but it's very easy to put soy sauce, as much soy sauce or not fish sauce, but aminos
yeah.
on things. So it's very easy to increase our salt dramatically. And it's also very easy to increase our sugar. So it's like, what am I supposed to eat? Let me eat these vegan cookies. So it's easy to do that.
I'll eat Oreos.
So
They're
so we
vegan,
have
right?
to be
Yeah.
they're vegan. So we have to be very careful, even when we change to any kind of diet or make a change in our diet. I really appreciated what you said, just listening to your body. And making sure you listen to your body. But you said something very specific, that people that are trying to correct now some challenges that they've had, maybe they've entered into type 2 diabetes. Give us your thoughts on that. And what have you seen with your clients, and what successes have you seen people have, and how to make progress? And we have to just caveat this. We're not doctors. We're not recommending you go off any medication that you're on. We're just simply stating some practices that we find are healthy and helpful when it comes to people with chronic illness.
Yes. I'll first say something about the salt and sugar conundrum.
Yeah.
The best sugar you can eat is fruit. That is nature's sugar. I have a strict policy that if it comes out of the ground, it's a gift and you should eat it, right? So any kind of food plan that says no to fruits and vegetables, anything that comes out of the earth, go the other way because that stuff is a gift, right? That is from the earth. So yes, fruit in abundance. Fruit does have sugar. The sugar in fruit, your body knows how to digest. The sugar in Coca-Cola, that's a little confusing for your body, right? So fruit is good. I want to say that. Fruit is good.
Yes. Sweetening things with dates, sweetening things with
wonderful.
Fruit is very, very good. Yeah.
And not fruit juice, but actual fruit. Yeah, sweetening with dates is wonderful. And fruit when it's ripe. Bananas are ripe when they're spotty, even though they don't look pretty. That's when, I know, guys, but that's when they got all the good sugars going.
Now let's make a caveat here too, though, because you could say, well, it's cane sugar. It's coming from cane plants. So we're talking about processed sugar. So when you just get sugar by the scoopfuls out of the bag, because an orange does not have scoopfuls of sugar out of the bag in an orange. So actually eating fruit and getting sugar from fruit is actually sugar in moderation. You're not necessarily just in it because you can't eat that many oranges in your life. Yeah.
You'd have other problems if you did. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you would. Very much full of fiber.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's very true. As close to the earth as you can, right?
Right.
That's
right.
what
Excellent.
we're looking for. Yeah, as close to it as you can. And the salt is really, I encourage people, we kind of get in a habit of when you cook, you're salting as you go, right? Just tossing it in and you're going. I try to encourage people not to salt until they taste the food once they sit down. Then you can add salt then. But when we add it during the cooking, oftentimes we then add more once we sit down to eat. And then we don't realize how much we've loaded in. So I like to encourage people, add the salt once you start eating and you taste it, right? Because also when you go plant-based, and you can probably speak to this, your taste buds change.
Oh, absolutely. You can actually, when you go plant-based and you get rid of meats and, heavy meats, especially like red meat, and you start going vegetables, you actually taste different things within the vegetable that you didn't taste before. Right. And you can actually taste when something's sweet, and you can taste when something is actually naturally salty. So it's really quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that you said a while ago, Stacy, that I remember we were talking about endurance sports is you run and train with dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me.
I like, but my go-to endurance, these are my homemade things. I like dates. Sometimes I will blend dates with coconut water, and that is like my own gel situation.
I have no idea how you get through a race. That would be like, I would be
And
loving that honey bucket.
yeah, you got to train the gut, right?
You gotta
And
train
then
the gut.
I like little baby potatoes boiled and rolled in some salt in the pocket. Put those in your pocket. Potatoes are nature's energy. Potatoes, they get a bad rap. Potatoes aren't making you fat. It's all the things you put on the potato. Yeah, it's not the potatoes'
Potatoes
fault.
are one.
So you are how many times have you done a triathlon? Full 140.6?
I am doing my first full this year.
Oh, so you've been doing halves.
I've been doing halves and Olympics. Yeah.
By
Right.
halves we mean 70.3. There's no half
Yes.
to it, but let's just be real.
Okay, sorry. Yes, a full is 140.6 miles total.
Yeah.
A half is half of that, 70.3. You are a long distance swimmer.
Mhm.
You are trained to be a long distance or trained to be a coach for cycling, swimming, and running. So you understand, number one, kinesiology. Number two, the science and nutrition of endurance sports. So let's move into a fitness section of our talk, because about half of our talk has been used for nutrition. But let's relate back to, because nutrition and fitness are going to go hand in hand.
Mhm.
Definitely. So Jake, why don't you, or I'll start it out with a few thoughts. Just with fitness and athleticism, there's a difference where fitness is kind of a broad term because you can be mentally fit or unfit. You can be bodily fit or unfit. You can be emotionally fit or unfit. So there's different, I guess, definitions or denotations of fitness. So when we talk about running or endurance sports, that is more athleticism than just a general broad fitness. Talking in generalities about nutrition is beneficial to our fitness. When we talk about athleticism or endurance sports, there's very specific nutrition protocols that go along with that. So you're burning a high rate of carbohydrates, you are expelling a high rate of salt. You need to ingest those things in order to make it through a race. But for general fitness, there's actually by Peter Attia, Dr. Peter Attia has identified, and this is his focus components. He has identified 4 components of exercise: stability, strength, aerobic performance, and anaerobic performance. So, Stacey, you have all this education training, but also practically you're a yoga instructor and a sound healer. You work with clients and train. You work with sports teams, and you help them with their nutrition and fitness as well. So you have a lot of experience on a broad range of different types of athleticism and fitness levels. So what are some basic things somebody like I can do to increase stability, increase my strength, and also my aerobic performance and my anaerobic? What are some things that you would recommend that I do on a daily basis or weekly basis to increase that in my life?
I like to tell people who are kind of just starting out, the best exercise you can do is the one you do. You have to pick something that you like. If you hate running, don't start a running plan. That's not going to work, right? If you love walking in nature, then, that's what you do. If we bite off too much, like, oh, I'm going to the gym every day, that's what I'm doing now, I'm going to lift weights every single day, that's not sustainable, right? You're going to get really sore, you're going to burn out really fast.
You won't get yoked.
Totally not. I mean, and you might hurt yourself in the process, right? So
Right.
thinking about, I like to ask people, like, well, what do you enjoy doing? Let's build something around that, right? If you really enjoy gardening, okay, well, what's the mechanism then? Like, you need a strong back and you need to be able to squat down so you can weed your garden. So we have to look at what's the functional movement. That's kind of a key term these days, functional fitness.
Right.
But also, unless you flip tires around for for part of your daily living, you don't need to practice doing that, right? Like, just let's think about, what do? I need to be able to reach up in my cupboard to get my coffee mug. Okay, so I need to have some flexibility for that. My shoulder needs to be able to move that way. So thinking about what is actually functional fitness.
I need to reach into my bourbon bar to pull out
Yes.
this heavy bottle that can make a
Right.
cocktail.
Yeah. Can I do that? Okay. And if I can't, how can I make it happen? Right.
Right.
So thinking about moving your body, creating more movement and
Right.
more opportunities for movement. A lot of people's social activities are not around physical
Moving.
stuff. Yeah. Moving our body. So instead of, oh, go ahead.
Do you think that that's a cultural thing here, or is that kind of ubiquitous?
I think it's cultural here. In many other cultures, people walk everywhere, right? There's or
Absolutely.
they ride their bikes, right? That's just part of the daily practice. They're not driving everywhere they go. And likewise, other cultures maybe depend more on their gardening for survival. And so that takes a lot of work. I mean, Sharia, you can speak to how much work it is to grow your food and, daily weeding and watering and trimming things back. Yeah.
I find that that we live in an unrecreative area. Like people don't go out, like do things active together.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting.
It's an interesting culture to live in, because actually Oregon is one of the top rated healthiest places in America. Yet as I walk around and I see just in my communities and pockets of communities, there's cyclists out, there's walkers out, there's runners out, but there's actually not that many. I mean, it's almost like, oh, we're a really active community because I saw 4 walkers today. It's like, well, what metric are we using?
Right.
Because I just had somebody tell me yesterday at it was a community mixer for downtown, the local downtown that we live in. And he was very clear to tell me that we live in a not a non-walkable community, a non-walking community. People just don't walk. They have to drive from one place. And if they can't, they get upset. So the people just drive everywhere. We are a non-walking community. We're walkable. I mean, you can walk anywhere here. We have trails and places to go, but we just don't walk. So I don't know what
There's
metric
sidewalks
we're using.
sometimes.
That we're I don't know what the least healthiest place, what they're doing or what they look like, but I don't want to live in the least healthiest place.
No.
Jake, just really quick, Jake, would you go over some of the functional activities of daily living? Give us those lists, and then let's incorporate some.
Did I cut you short, Stacy? I forget.
Oh, no, I think, I was thinking too about living in a place where you don't feel like it's an active community. To my knowledge, we don't have in our area here, like city leagues, right? I don't see people out playing adults, like softball leagues and, things where you'd be mixing it up and doing that. One, that's wonderful community building, right? But also you're moving your bodies. I don't know of much of that happening in this area. So
do we have church leagues either?
No.
I don't
We
know
do
of any church
some.
leagues.
We do some, but the church leagues, they're pulling from a larger area. And so it's not like this concentrated area, but really you go to other countries and you'll see a park full of equipment that people are just using to exercise and run on tracks, that are just a city park that's meant for activity for adults too. And we just don't have that here.
Yeah.
No. And it's too bad because not everybody has access to paying for a gym membership. That's not in
No.
everyone's.
Gyms are expensive. Yeah.
They are.
They are.
And
yeah,
even like
yeah.
club teams or like group play is usually at those facilities. So it's not even accessible to people that aren't inside.
Right.
What did what did you want me to go over, Kevin?
I want you to go over the activities of daily living because this is really important that some of the people that you and I follow talk about activities of daily living. And these are the things that just waking up in the morning and doing these things is a part of our fitness. And if we don't do these things, there's some things breaking down. So why don't you talk a little bit about that for us?
These are correlated to longevity. And so I'm going to just read this list and think about the first one are the basic activities for daily living. And they're what you have to do, basically, plumb line, the standard things.
This is the bottom. This is this foundational.
Every person needs to do. But think about, we have two sides of life. We have the life where we can't function as a child and a baby, that these things are outside of our grasp, and then we grow into them. And then as we age into elderly, that we will age out of these things as well. So we'll lose control of that. And in longevity, and for like value added life, to keep these things in the forefront of your mind. So as you begin to lose them, or that you train yourself and you go through programs and train to not lose these things. So one thing is feeding yourself. Baby can't feed themselves. Elderly will slowly degrade until they can't feed themselves. Bathing, same thing on the spectrum. Grooming, work, homemaking, toilet hygiene, and leisure. So those are the basic activities for daily living, just basics. Then you have what's called the instrumental activities of daily living. So things that will add to your life a little bit, but just make you autonomous on your own. And one thing is maintaining your household. So cleanliness, orderliness, knowing where things are. Same thing with managing money, having your account. So think about like your parents or grandparents that are aging out at this stage that, you know, when it starts to slip that they can't maintain their house or they can't maintain their cash flow.
They start writing checks to Publishers Clearinghouse.
The 700 Club does not need your money, Grandma. Anyways, sorry. Moving within your community. So like driving around. We have a lady, elderly lady that comes in the shop that now she takes an Uber because she's been in an accident a couple times. So you have to figure out how to move within your community. If you are training yourself, you'll figure that out. If you aren't training yourself, you'll just be stuck at home reclusive. Meal prep. So what we were talking about earlier, Stacy, like if something's amiss in your life, you won't find the joy in cooking. And as you age, you know, you may not have that many people to enjoy a meal with. And so the prep of meal kind of is taken out of that. Shopping for yourself, taking medications, so laying your medications out in order and taking them as you age, and communicating. Digitally, I mean, the fastest growing Facebook user for like the last 10 years is 65 and older. And so there is a positive in digital communication. I think that we've lost that side of things, that social media is able to drive elderly to communicate. Then you have the things that you can do with others. So it's called the instrumental activities of daily life. Care of others, care of pets, child rearing. So we're talking about care, communication management. So like mediating and navigating other people to talk to one another. Financial management, health maintenance. So not just taking your medications on time, but actually keeping up on your health. Home maintenance, meal prep and cleanup, religious observations, emergency responses, and shopping. So Dr. Peter Attia talks about these as, when he talks about the Centurion Decathlon, that these are the things that are not part of those 10 things he wants to do when he's 100. Those are the things that they will have to be just rudimentary things of life, because you have to. Some things might be taken away from you, like if you're chronically ill, if you have a disability of any sorts. But training yourself and putting in scaffolding around you so that your life will be fit. And I think the activities of daily life are the basics of fitness, both cognitive, or all three: cognitive, emotionally, and physically.
So when you listen to that list, Stacy, how do you find that? Just give me an example about how plant-based eating can add to my activities of daily living functionally. And then specifically, how can yoga increase my life? Like, I don't do yoga very often. Help me to do yoga more.
I think for a lot of people, the biggest struggle to doing yoga is time. That's one more thing you're putting on, right? And in a lot of ways, it seems to people like that's an extra, or like people sort of put it in the category of getting a massage, right? Like, well, I don't have time for that, or I don't have, that's extra, right? But now it couldn't be easier. If you, I mean, you don't even need a yoga mat, right? You have carpet in your house or whatever. There's no equipment really needed to do yoga. So whatever barriers we have there, and you can check out a book for free at the library and see all the yoga poses. There's definitely ways, and the internet, right? I'm not going to say all of it's good out there, but there's definitely
do you have
a lot.
do you have a website that you can steer our listeners to that maybe you would recommend? I put you on the spot, so let's just put those in the show notes later. Just give us that later. But there are two places that we can steer people to right now, and that is this one that is free, the Insight Timer. The Insight Timer has lots of different meditations, but also some different teachings on it that maybe we can glean some resources to add to our adult daily living.
Yes. So yes, doing yoga is great for so many reasons. One, of course, the benefit most people associate with it is the stretching, right?
Yeah.
Moving our bodies, becoming, you can gain flexibility at any age. A long time ago, I worked at a retirement community as a health and wellness director, teaching yoga to 90-year-olds, and it's remarkable, right, that they could still gain flexibility, and they were like, I haven't touched my toes since I was 20, and I did it today, and it's like, that's amazing. So yeah, if you work at it, you can gain flexibility, right? And so that's great. And often people say, well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. Well,
isn't that the reason to do yoga?
You gotta start somewhere, right? So just starting. And even if it's 10 minutes a day, stretching, making your body more pliable. This helps, things, even little things I tell people, like making sure your ankles and feet are pliable, because as you step up and down curbs, if you have a really rigid ankle joint happening there, like that becomes dangerous, right? So we need flexibility in the body, in the hips, in the feet, and the wrists. And so even just basic movement. Most people don't stretch until they have an injury, and then they have to stretch. We should be a bit more preemptive on the stretching, I think.
So to now recap on something that I don't want to lose sight of that we mentioned, but plant-based eating, but also what you've seen with type 2 diabetes. Now, one thing that just annihilates our activity of daily living in our culture is the, I don't know what they call it, epidemic stats of type 2 diabetes. Now, I understand that there are some cases where people have cellular resistance, insulin resistance, and it's caused by different things than damaging our body with what we're taking in for food, eating sugars and things for a very long time. But for the majority of people, type 2 diabetes is caused by poor healthy habits, metabolic disease, and eating and fitness, just not doing it. So give us your take on I'm not going to say overcoming, but living with type 2 diabetes. What can I do? Let's word it that way.
Eat plants, right? The thing is, when we're talking about diabetes, when we're talking about arteries starting to clog up in the body, I try to explain to people that eating fruits and vegetables are like scrub brushes for your insides, right? So where plaque is building up, where we're getting gunk stuck in our body, in our digestive tract, the fruits and vegetables are coming in and they're making space inside your body so that your energy, your blood, everything begins to flow. And that's what we need, right? We need less stagnation, and fruits and vegetables can do that. There's a lot of wonderful research now that people have reversed type 2 diabetes on a plant-based diet, and changing their eating habits. And even with like super minimal exercise, right? That really just changing the food. People are often able to get off medications that they have relied on. And really the biggest thing that I'm seeing with type 2 diabetes is we're just seeing children younger and younger getting this diagnosis. And we know what it looks like for people to be on these medications in adulthood, but we don't have the research what it looks like for someone starting in childhood, a lifetime of being on these medications. That's kind of scary.
Yeah,
very.
That is scary. A lifetime of blood pressure medication breaks down your organs, statins for cholesterol, insulin injections. I mean, it's just, we are in an epidemic when it comes to what we're putting in our bodies and what we are actually doing to our bodies when we just continue to not care. Now, we're not recommending anybody goes off of their medications. Work with your doctor on that, but definitely what sometimes for me, when I take a medication, it gives me license to do the poor behavior even more. And we need to be careful of that as well.
Right.
Continuing bad behavior, eating habits and such.
Yeah.
I can attest. Go ahead.
It's putting a hat on whatever the issue is. The issue is still there, but we've put the hat on it. And so we don't exactly see it, but that is the pills are not a cure.
No. So so I can attest to a few things going on a plant-based diet. So I'm going to reveal my test results for my lipid panel. Okay. So in 2012, doing triathlons, eating meat and stuff, I've never had really bad cholesterol. But I definitely, if I stopped training, and just stopped all of my activity, definitely my cholesterol over time would have gone up. So I've always rode around about 120 to 130 on my cholesterol. Very good cholesterol, according to the stats and according to other charts. But my cholesterol in 4 months, okay, and it's been stable, my cholesterol went down 19 points. So 101. So from 120 to 101. So, that's pretty okay. Just going on a plant-based diet. As somebody that had good cholesterol, now I have a cholesterol that is, that's really good. When I go for my micronutrient tests and some other tests that I've taken over this last handful of months, I would say my internal clock is getting younger. And so that younger internal clock, like my doctor has told me, of certain test results, it's like you have this of a 19-year-old, what are you doing to your body? And I said, well, I've gone plant-based.
Yeah.
And I've been very specific about the different supplements that I've taken, and I'm more than willing to share any supplement stack that I use. But most of what I'm doing is whole foods, just trying to focus on what I'm putting in my body, whole foods. But what another interesting is triglycerides. It's basically your blood fat. My triglycerides went from 112 to 96, so that's 16 points down. Just going plant. So that's in the span of 5 months ago, or 5 months prior to, excuse me, what am I trying to say? A year before going vegan, okay, I took a lipid panel, and then I went vegan, and now my points are very low. I'm 50. I should not have triglycerides and cholesterol probably that low. And I feel great. My recovery is much better than it used to be. I'm not as sore after I lift weights or run or cycle. I'll cycle and have lots of energy. I feel like I have lots of energy. And I just feel better about my life. You talk about just the emotional experience about your life. I feel better. So let's just conclude with a couple of thoughts, because Sharayah, do you want to jump in?
I'd like to ask one more question if I could.
Please.
Do you have any advice for someone living with chronic pain or chronic fatigue to be able to get more whole foods? Because like for the most part, you can't just pull a vegetable out of the ground and eat it. You've got to do something with it.
Yeah. Like how to prepare more foods or sneak them into your meals?
When you don't have the energy to do all the prep work, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I mean, we do talk about fresh is best, but nowadays frozen is excellent. You can buy really good frozen produce, and that is a lot easier prep wise. Being able to microwave frozen veggies, and there's wonderful organic frozen vegetables that I don't. We can debate organic versus conventional, but just more vegetables, whatever you can afford, whatever you can do, just make it happen.
Right.
And I think frozen is great. I think that's a great way to start. That is definitely easier. I personally don't encourage a lot in the way of drinking your calories, smoothies and stuff. That's really popular, but unless you chew your smoothie, I guess, which most people don't. But yeah, we still need those digestive juices. And so, yeah, I think frozen is wonderful. Frozen berries can easily be microwaved to put on your oatmeal. I would say frozen is probably the easiest prep-wise. Yeah. I don't know if that helps.
So I think part of the challenge of chronic illness and fatigue, part of the challenge is it's kind of like a snowball. It just, I'm too tired to do this, and then I don't want to do it, and I just get unhealthier and unhealthier and unhealthier. So yeah, chronic fatigue is a challenge. I do have to say, and if it can be done, or help could be given to this person with chronic fatigue and pain, they will feel better.
Yeah.
Just by we eat with our eyes first. That's something that I teach people all the time. We eat with our eyes first. And so if something looks good, like fresh and beautiful, the way that God created our eyes and our brains and our bodies, that when we look at something natural, we can identify, and our brain tells us that's natural, good for me. And that automatically has a response mechanism in our body to prepare my body to eat actually good food. So part of our, people that say, I don't like anything green, or I don't like anything vegetable, I don't really know quite what to say to that. Besides, that's a mindset. That is maybe just the mindset that somebody is in, that maybe it needs to be a necessity versus a preference. Like eating vegetables needs to move to the necessity versus, well, I just don't like them. But yeah, if somebody could help somebody or put foods in front of somebody that wouldn't have that natural eye to brain response of this is healthy, this is natural, this is going to be good for me. That's also a snowball that will happen in somebody's life too, if they do that enough.
Yeah, the more vibrant food you get in your body, the more that energy is inside of you. And you'll start to feel that energy. And I can't say enough about, even though, poor kale gets a bit of a bad rap, but there are ways to sneak more nutritious food into the foods you eat anyways, right? If you're making pasta, put your sauce in a blender with a whole bunch of greens and maybe some black beans, and you blend that up and, ta-da, it's just your regular pasta sauce. If you have to hide it for yourself, it's okay. But over time, you start to crave the healthier foods because of the way it feels in your body. And so, things that you would have never eaten before, you're like, man, that was the best broccoli I've ever had. Like, I want broccoli again. Because the body just starts to be like, yeah, that's good. Give me more of that.
I don't know if I've ever said that, but I will wait for that.
Broccoli?
You want to come pick it from my yard? And
I have ever had.
Yeah. I actually am starting to say that. Like when I look at good foods, and Amanda, my wife, is a wonderful cook, and the majority of our food she cooks at home, and she is way into it, and she loves to cook good food. So I get to enjoy that every day, almost 90% of my life. And so, hey, can we do a popcorn? Just give me a short answer for each statement I'm about ready to make. This is not on our pre-notes.
Lightning round.
So this is a lightning round. All right. Ready for the lightning round? Just give me a short answer here. Plant-based meat-like products.
Meats like in the shape of
plant-based
texture.
I don't want to use the word because I might get in. I don't want to get in trouble for
the brands. Okay.
Slamming. So like ground beef, but not ground beef. Fake ground beef made out of plants. Short answer.
Okay. My short answer. It's not for me, but it's only because I don't miss meat. I never liked the texture of meat. That was not my thing. My opinion on it, for people that are trying to transition, that's wonderful that there's things that, nothing had to die for you to eat something. Is it a health food? Not so much. But is it a good way to transition? Yeah.
Okay.
Can be.
Fermented foods.
Love it.
Good for you, bad for you, necessary for the gut biome.
Absolutely. Look at any culture and you will find fermented foods, and yes, good for the gut, good for so many things. Fermented foods are wonderful. Yes. But, pickles that you buy off the shelf in the middle aisles, not the same as the fermented, I guess we can't use brands, but the ones that they're a little bit funky when you open them. Those are the good ones. A little funky.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Okay. Farmed fish.
No.
No.
I can recommend some documentaries about that.
You can recommend a documentary. Give it to us.
Oh boy, I can recommend several. Forks Over Knives is wonderful. What's the one, Kevin? I'm trying to remember the one you watched.
Seaspiracy. Seaspiracy. Yeah. Whoa, boy.
Whoa.
Changed my life. Farm fish actually live in a cage.
Tank.
And if they're a naturally farmed fish, that cage is just put into the water, the natural water. So those farmed fish live in their sewage. And so that's why farm fish actually, when you read the package, it says no color added. Why would you have to add color to salmon? You start questioning that because it's white when it comes out of the farm. It does no color. It's gray.
They're also finding lots of really terrifying diseases in those fish as well, that
Like
are
the
not
Simpsons style.
palatable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, yeah. I mean, fish is a challenging one because, we've sort of been convinced that farm raised fish is better because we're not taking out of the ocean, but farming fish is also has its problems. And then fishing from the ocean, the bycatch and the other things that come with that, and what's happening to our ocean. If we care about this earth that we were given, then we need to think about ways, longevity in our own bodies. But you might be incredibly fit, but this world isn't going to make it if we keep it on this trajectory. So
Right.
we have to think about our impact there as well.
What this is a question that was thrown out there. What do you think is the most impactful book, documentary series that you recommend to your clients?
Well, the China study was a wonderful book, but it's very dense, so I don't usually recommend that one. But I like Forks Over Knives. I think that's a really good film. I'm trying to remember the one that came out more recently that got a lot of publicity because they had some athletes in it. Kevin, what was that one?
It had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't remember the name. He's vegan now.
It's not Vegucated. Is it Vegucated?
No.
Okay, let's do popcorn. Best food for my brain.
Walnuts. Look at a walnut. What does a walnut look like when you crack it open?
A brain.
My brain.
A brain.
That's a good reminder. Awesome.
What does a walnut have in it that makes it good for your brain? Omegas
fats.
Or what are we talking
good
about?
Fats. Yeah, good fats.
Yeah, that's a great illustration. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Walnuts for the brain.
Walnuts.
That is excellent. I lost something here. Hold on a second. Okay. Should I microwave or should I stovetop?
I mean, I would prefer stovetop, but if the microwave is what gets you to eat the healthy food, you do what you got to do.
Do it anyway. Do what you got to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I trust my tap water?
I don't know. I'm gonna say
There's
no.
so much estrogen in tap water now too.
There's so much in water.
There's chemicals, estrogen. There's so much in tap water right now.
I mean, I want to say if you can get your water from a natural spring, if you can make the drive out on the 26 and fill your bottles,
Yeah.
But we're finding forever chemicals in rainfall now. So
yeah, totally. Intermittent fasting.
No.
Why?
It can be a very big hormone disruptor. That is an interesting one. It's popular, right? The whole skipping breakfast trend that we've always been doing is now called intermittent fasting. But yeah, it all comes around. But it can become a pretty significant hormone disruptor. So if you're just not hungry in the morning, fine, listen to your body's natural cues. But forcing yourself into these eating windows, what we are finding is it just becomes an absolute binge for a lot of people. And that's not serving you.
Okay.
The vegetarian athlete thing was called the Game Changer.
Yes, that's it. Game Changers. Yes.
Okay. And here is one for, you've already mentioned it, but I'll ask it in a question. Why is kale healthy?
Kale is loaded with vitamins. It's loaded with iron and calcium, and it's like a Brillo pad for your insides. It's so good. Just scrub out the
So
gunk.
So good. I've eaten it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time in different ways. I
Pro
love
tip on the kale, though.
What?
People are a little turned off on the kale because texturally it can be like real roughage. The trick to kale is massaging your kale.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you massage your kale? Give us a recommendation.
I like to use a combination of some citrus and some fat. That really helps to break down the woodiness of things. Some people do eat the stem. I do not. That's just too much. Maybe save that for a smoothie, or if you're cooking your own stock, save your scraps. But yeah, I like to do a little bit of lemon and a little bit of tahini. That's my favorite one. Yeah.
Last one, sleep.
Really underrated. Really underrated.
Tell me more really quick. That could last an hour, but sleep.
I could take all day on sleep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Why is it underrated?
Really underrated because, you spend half your life sleeping. So the quality of, the bed you're sleeping in, the temperature of your room, the lighting, everything goes into your sleep. And sleep is recovery. Sleep is when your body, your cells, everything gets to rejuvenate and reset. And when we're doing that with the TV on or earbuds in, all these things, like your body's like never down regulating your nervous system. And I would say most Americans, your nervous system is fried most of the time. So we really need to down regulate that. And sleep is a beautiful way to do it.
Awesome.
Very good.
Stacey Cannon, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your thoughts and your wisdom, your education, and your experience. You can find Stacey on cypher.life. That's cypher.life. That is her personal coaching website. And also, you can sign up locally here for teaching. Can I ask one question? Do you do Zoom coaching and digital coaching? Okay, so you can sign up for digital coaching. And you can also locally sign up for sound healing or yoga classes wherever she teaches those now. And so you can sign up for just the different programs that she has to offer. We also just want to encourage you to ask questions. To continue this through the week, you can put questions in our chat. And if we don't know the answer, we can reach out to Stacey during the week and find out the answer, and she can help us with that. So with that, thanks, Sharayah. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Stacey, especially for joining us. And with that, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, Stacey.
Yes.